Welcome to Wisconsin in Focus. I'm JD Davidson. The role of school resource officers in the nation's classrooms has been debated hotly over the last few years. Some districts embrace the idea of police in their buildings, while others believe the presence creates an adversarial role with students. Currently, though, there are no officers in Wisconsin's largest school district. Joining us today is Ben Yount, Wisconsin contributor for the Center Square. And Ben, why is the issue of SROs becoming more controversial in the Milwaukee Public Schools?
If we had the license, if we paid the money, this would be the perfect place to play Judas Priest's Breaking the Law. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. This is a thing now because Milwaukee Public Schools were told as part of a state law that they've got to return school resource officers to the building. The deadline for that was January 1. I think just about everybody understood that wasn't going to happen. But here we are now, last days of August. Kids come back in Milwaukee on Tuesday, and those school resource officers still aren't there. And it very much appears that they're not going to be back, if in any way, not for a long, long time. State Senator John Jagler wrote a letter last week to Milwaukee Public Schools saying essentially, hey, remember that law? What's going on here? What is it that you are doing? I talked with the senator this week, and he said that he finally got a response from MPS. We'll get to that here in a second. But he said that they're stuck between the decision, the law, the desire, the agreement that Milwaukee Public Schools are going to bring police officers back, and the reality that this law has no teeth. And so there's nothing that they can do. But, and this is again, where so many of these stories are not just a one time, here's this, and then we move on. This is one of the really neat parts about covering state government the way that we do at the Center Square. This is a snapshot, and then we'll get another snapshot, and we'll get another snapshot. And pretty soon, you've got a really full picture book, and you can understand the story. This story here today is MPS continuing to refuse to follow the law. Jagler said that the next update on this story is what's going to happen when Milwaukee Public Schools need something from lawmakers, because as he told me, the legislature is not going to forget this.
The fact is, Ben, they are breaking the law, and never in a million years would I thought we'd have to put punitive measures in that statute. You know, if you don't do this, this happens. And I guess the answer is they don't care because there are no ramifications. But what it's going to do going forward, as we look at anything with MPS, with bailout, with new funding, like, how can we trust them to do anything? Like, if we say you got to sell 25 buildings or by the end of the year or whatever, and who's to say that they're just going to ignore that too, as they're loaded and holding on to these buildings when they're begging for cash? It really irritates me, and it's gonna really weaken the relationship, if there was any, between MPS and the state legislature right now.
And that's where this goes going forward in the longer term, because don't forget, we've been talking for how many months now about Milwaukee Public Schools' financial crisis. They still have not yet turned in those required reports to the state. As of Tuesday, one of them will be a year behind. They could lose in all about $60 million. That's money that's going to have to come from somewhere, and MPS continues to lose students, so it loses money. And so, where this is a clear example of Milwaukee Public Schools just don't want to return cops to the classroom, this now is becoming all right, well, we asked you, now we're going to have to make you, and how MPS gets made to do something it doesn't want to do, well, that remains to be seen.
So how would the senator get around the idea that the local school district, the local school board, is in the best position to make those local decisions? We just spent a podcast on cell phone bans where we think that they're going to ask local school districts to make those decisions. How is this not the same thing?
This was part of the negotiations of the shared revenue deal. If you remember back to the summer of 2023, the big agreement at the Wisconsin Capitol was a deal to send more money to every local government in the state, cities, counties, townships, villages. Everybody was going to get more money, but that money had to be spent on cops or paramedics or some sort of public safety infrastructure kind of thing. You couldn't take it and spend it on DEI. That was a specific requirement. This is also the deal that allowed Milwaukee and Milwaukee County to raise their sales taxes. This is also the deal that kept the Milwaukee Brewers in town. It was one of these Christmas tree pieces of legislation that everybody got to hang something on so that it was a big, broad agreement. Everybody could go home and say, well, look at what we did. And Governor Evers signed this law. Now, were Republicans short-sighted in not including a punishment? Probably. You know, if you want to make that political call, then you can certainly say, you know, a law that doesn't have any punishment is really just a suggestion. But Jagler's point of eventually MPS is going to come to the state legislature and ask for something else, ask for something new, is really the valid point, because Milwaukee Public Schools are in a whole bunch of trouble. A story that we'll be filing tomorrow is that there's now a legislative audit that is going to come. It was ordered earlier today that is going to require the state's Department of Public Instruction to turn over its sort of financial compliance office and figure out just why Milwaukee Public Schools had such a tough time balancing its books. What went wrong? We saw this also with a mistake in the budget in schools in Wauwatosa, and there's a school district over in the Madison area, Monona Grove, that had something similar happen where they look at the books and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, these numbers don't add up at all. What happened? The former budget person wasn't doing their job? What? Milwaukee schools could be facing serious questions and maybe even some funding ramifications from that audit. There is a wide expectation that Milwaukee Public Schools are going to have to come back to the state legislature and make up the $50 or $60 million that they're losing because of their current fiscal crisis. Jagler is one of many that fully expects MPS to come, maybe not so much hat in hand, but, you know, you don't get to bite the hand that feeds you. You don't get to give the middle finger to the person who's paying you forever. Eventually somebody's going to say, wait, you remember how you treated me last time? Yeah, I don't want that to happen this time. And XYZ, ABC, 1, 2, 3. Now, in terms of actually enforcing this law, you know, Schoolhouse Rock, 3-ring government. The legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch executes the laws, enforces the laws. And Jagler said, because I asked him that, you know, there's no way Governor Evers or Wisconsin's Attorney General touches this. So the enforcement comes on the back end. The enforcement comes the next time MPS schools come and ask for something, and the Republican legislature holds this up and says, look, the last time we thought we had an agreement with you guys, you ignored us. So if we're going to have any kind of an agreement going forward, here's what's going to happen. ABC, 1, 2, 3, XYZ.
I mean, absolutely. If you're going to thumb your nose at what they suggest, then know what's coming down the line. Ben, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.